Hello there and welcome everybody. How are we today? I'm sure we're doing well. Uh, I'm good. I'm here. It's a bit cloudy. Oh, don't forget that. Don't forget to give us a follow. I had a fun day today. I was at a conference talking all about, let me think, SDGs. And SDG9 popped up. What a surprise. We will be looking a bit more at that very, very shortly. But remember, give us a follow on various social medias. If you're here on YouTube, well, you're here on YouTube already. And there is always the opportunity to donate if you feel you must. So today's quote, you can all read, but I'll say it anyway. Show me a healthy community with a healthy economy, and I will show you a community that has its green infrastructure in order and understands the relationship between the built and unbuilt environment. Show me one of those. I would be pretty delighted if you did. Hey there, Inaya. Hi there. How are we today? I hope everyone's okay. So we're talking today about SDG9. We'll get onto that very, very shortly. Before we do some of the general vocab for today, we'll be looking at infrastructure, which are the basic buildings and roads and power supplies and things like that. Innovation, which of course, as it says there, is a new, better method or idea. And then sustainable industrialization, which sounds a bit like an oxymoron if you ask me. How can you industrialize whilst being sustainable? Well, it's the idea of decoupling, so taking apart industry from the exploitation of natural resources. So how possible is that? I'm not 100% sure. So today's is, as I mentioned, SDG 9, which is all about innovation, infrastructure, and so on. So we're going to have a quick look here at the different targets. And you can see there that it's to build resilient infrastructure, so roads that are built to last, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, so that's including everybody within it, providing equal opportunities in doing so, and foster innovation. Now, I think innovation is something we're pinning quite a lot of our hopes on in terms of our lives. Now, I'd really like to know from Inaya, because I think she's kind of seen a lot of the future innovation at first hand on a recent trip she went on. So I'm really keen to hear about what she thinks about these future innovations, because I believe I hope she's back now, but I think she went away by the looks of her Instagram. And I'm sure she's got some great insight into the way the future looks. So here we have some of the ideas. The idea to develop sustainable and resilient and inclusive infrastructure. So I think, particularly looking at the way we build houses, not these prefabricated ones that are going to fall apart in no time. So looking at building more sustainable housing, which can use energy efficiency as opposed to pumping in a whole load of new energy, but also chucking solar panels on every roof. Promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization. So this is for everybody in our industrialization, in our green industrialization. So there is freedom for everybody to be included within that. Increase financial services and markets. Increase access to them. I think a fairer financial service would be better, and a more transparent one, and one which no longer invests in fossil fuels, would be a better target, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. I'm just a guy with a beard and a dog. Number 4 is to upgrade all industries' infrastructures for sustainability. Now, this is something that's, again, something I would love to see things being built properly. Now, you can see a lot of solar panels are coming out there, but let's look at the fossil fuel industry, because that needs to be upgraded very quickly. So here we got what Inaya says. She is back. She went to Dubai. One of the main events was the Expo 2020. It was an amazing event where they talked about the Sustainable Development Goals, how each country could help combat climate change, and the way they're focusing to stay more sustainable. Now, it's very good. Just outside Abu Dhabi, actually, which is the capital of the UAE, they've built Masdar City, which is like a future city, which has got architecture that's been built, with energy efficiency in mind, and there's lots of solar power, and it's a futuristic place with some wonderful ideas on building for the future. And as I mentioned in a talk I did the other day for Macmillan and one I did today for Pearson about the Sustainable Development Goals, okay, maybe the governments aren't falling in line with them quickly enough, but it doesn't mean we can't use them to educate ourselves. We can't use them to educate those around us. Maybe we won't reach zero poverty, but that doesn't mean we have to stop trying. And the last one here is to enhance research and upgrade industrial technologies. I think this is absolutely key. You can see a lot of the work that people are doing to do that, to help improve on those different areas. And yeah, so that's the basic remit of SDG9, and it's something that, much like SDG8, I find a lot of it very difficult to come to terms with, in the eyes of an environmentalist. And I also see a lot of people pinning their hopes on these future technologies, with carbon extraction and stuff like that. Whereas maybe we need to focus our energies and our efforts on reducing inequalities and so on. So, some unfun facts, or maybe they're fun facts. Now, Frank wasn't available to come with us today, so I'm afraid it's going to have to be just regular old me. Global manufacturing has dropped by almost 7% in 2020. Is that a bad thing? I don't think it's a bad thing. 2.6 billion people do not have proper access to electricity. 96.5% of the planet has at least 2G coverage, and air flights dropped from 4.5 billion to 1.8 billion in 2020. I would be interested to see how much that went up again in 2021 and what it will go up again in 2022, because a lot of the issues I've seen, particularly here, are ghost flights, or flights that also have almost nobody on them. And they're continuing to fly even though they're not making a profit from it, because they want to keep their place on the list. I think for me, the most shocking of those is the one about the 2.6 billion people not having access to electricity, yet quite a lot of the planet having access to coverage for a mobile phone. That's about double the population of China. So now, true or false? Get ready to chuck it in the chat box before we go off for our video. So, true or false? Fact number one, what do we think? Is it true or false? 2020 saw a huge rise in manufacturing. What do you think? Was there a rise in manufacturing in 2020? There was, in fact, looks like Estrella wants to answer, a fall. There was a fall by about 7%, which I don't see as being a huge issue. It would be nice to make less stuff. Fact number two. More than twice the population of China don't have access to electricity. More than twice the population of China do not have access to electricity. That, on a global scale, is true. And here, 2020 was a good year for the aviation industry. It was not. We had people asking for bailouts here, there, and everywhere. So how many did you get correct out of those three? Feel free to write in the comments below. Okay, next up we've got the questions for our videos. Now remember, with any listening task, always read the questions first, so you've got an idea of what's coming up. And maybe you can even start answering beforehand. So let me just go in here as well, because I appear to have missed something. I missed a capital letter, which is terrible. As an English teacher, I should know better. So there are our 5 questions. I want you to be keeping an eye out, for some of these are gist questions, others are more specific. We're going to jump over to the interview now. It's about 2 minutes. We will watch it twice.
The United Nations' 9th Sustainable Development Goal is industry, innovation and infrastructure. The UN wants to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. There's a huge lack of infrastructure in many countries, especially developing countries, causing limitations of the bare necessities like sanitation, healthcare and communications. For this reason, the main objective is for the global standard of infrastructure to increase substantially. 2.5 billion people lack access to basic sanitation and almost 800 million people lack access to water. These and many other problems are what occur from inadequate infrastructure, which is why the UN hope to develop and retrofit infrastructure, especially in developing countries.
Infrastructure and industrialization are also important for employment and the economy. Lack of infrastructure reduces access to markets, jobs, information and training, causing a large barrier when it comes to business. With a stronger infrastructure, there will be an increase in jobs and business opportunities, which will have a positive impact on the economy and society. Every job in manufacturing creates 2.2 jobs in other sectors, which means less of the population will suffer from unemployment and poverty.
There are also improvements needed in general and domestic technology. About 2.6 billion people in the developing world have difficulties accessing electricity 24/7. This means many homes don't have the ability to clean or cook, which negatively affects health. Which is why by 2020, the UN strive to provide universal and affordable access to the internet. And that's what you should know about the UN's 9th Sustainable Development Goal.
So take another quick look at the questions there. If there are any you didn't quite have the chance to answer, look more closely and we'll jump into this again before we answer them. Let's watch one more time.
The United Nations' 9th Sustainable Development Goal is industry, innovation and infrastructure. The UN wants to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. There's a huge lack of infrastructure in many countries, especially developing countries, causing limitations of the bare necessities like sanitation, healthcare and communications. For this reason, the main objective is for the global standard of infrastructure to increase substantially. 2.5 billion people lack access to basic sanitation and almost 800 million people lack access to water. These and many other problems are what occur from inadequate infrastructure, which is why the UN hope to develop and retrofit infrastructure, especially in developing countries.
Infrastructure and industrialization are also important for employment and the economy. Lack of infrastructure reduces access to markets, jobs, information and training, causing a large barrier when it comes to business. With a stronger infrastructure, there will be an increase in jobs and business opportunities, which will have a positive impact on the economy and society. Every job in manufacturing creates 2.2 jobs in other sectors, which means less of the population will suffer from unemployment and poverty.
There are also improvements needed in general and domestic technology. About 2.6 billion people in the developing world have difficulties accessing electricity 24/7. This means many homes don't have the ability to clean or cook, which negatively affects health. Which is why by 2020, the UN strive to provide universal and affordable access to the internet. And that's what you should know about the UN's 9th Sustainable Development Goal.
So let's check these out then. What is SDG9? You've got your three options there. It is, of course, industry, infrastructure and innovation. It is not intonation, information and integration. What does the UN want to do with innovation? It is, of course, B, it wants to foster innovation. And we talk about the number of people with a lack of access to water. And it was 800 million. 800 million people with a lack of access to water. Stronger infrastructure will apparently create more jobs. And the last speaker, of course, eats a raw egg. Okay, now, there is time for a very special guest to join us today. As you know, we always have Ali's top tips. We always record them. So I thought instead today, I'd just get it straight from the horse's mouth and invite Ali in to bring her own top tips. So Ali, come on in.
Hi.
So Ali, quick question. Let me just jump back to our sustainable development goals. You've been giving us plenty of advice. Now I'd like to know, tell me, what are your top tips to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation? Tell me, what should we do? How can we save the planet?
Okay, two things. First, in SDG 8, you told me there was no child labour.
Okay.
And second, I'm 8 years old, so I don't know anything about that stuff that you said.
Ah, you don't know, but what are your top tips then? What about something else? Give us a tip about something different.
Okay, well, instead of going by car in short journeys, go by bike or walking.
That's a nice idea. Or you could use Wiggly Jiggly, which is like a super cool scooter.
Or a scooter.
There you go.
Or a skateboard.
Or a skateboard. Basically something that doesn't use fossil fuels. Well, thank you. And thank you for your honesty. Because you know what? We can't hope that the kids are going to answer every single question for us. And even Ali doesn't have top tips to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialisation and foster innovation, do you?
What the hell's that?
Exactly. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. And thank you very much for joining us here today.
Bye.
Well, Ali's going to go. Thank you very much for your time, Ali. And remember, everybody, please do visit the website. Visit us on renewableenglish.com. Do give us a follow. Renewable English. We're also on Twitter. We're also on TikTok now, actually. Very rarely, though. Mostly just picking up rubbish. Do subscribe. And, of course, feel free to donate whenever you feel the need to give a little. We'll be back in a couple of weeks talking about SDG 10. Until then, I'll see you later.